Hi, in this lesson we're going to look at perpendicular lines. So let's talk through this question. The line L1 has equation y equals 2x plus 4, so it's the same line that we had before. L2 is perpendicular to L1 and goes through the point minus 3, 3. Find the equation of L2. So what does perpendicular mean? Well, perpendicular means that it crosses L1 at a right angle. Now, in this lesson, what I'm going to do, we're going to talk through how to solve this problem. We're going to use a well-known result about perpendicular lines, and then I'm going to go into more detail at the end of the lesson about why that rule works. So one of the things you've probably learned in GCSE is that if you have one line with a gradient of m, the perpendicular gradient to that is minus 1 over m. So we're going to use this result to solve this question, and then at the end of the video I'll talk a bit more about why this is true. Alright, so what can we say about L2? Well, it's perpendicular to L1. So the gradient of L1 was 2, and then what can we say about the gradient of L2? Well, it's minus 1 divided by the gradient of L1, so minus a half. So what we know then is that the equation of L2 will be y equals minus a half x plus something, and our job is now to work out what that something is. We can do that by using the coordinates given to us here, because we know that when x is negative 3, y is 3. So let's substitute those values into this equation. So when y is 3, we know that x is negative 3. And then our job is to work out what this plus c is. So expanding that bracket, negative a half times negative 3 is 3 over 2, or 1.5 if you like. And now subtracting 3 over 2 from both sides, I'm going to get 3 over 2, because 3 minus 3 over 2 is 3 over 2. So now I know that the equation is y equals negative a half x plus 3 over 2, which of course is totally fine to write as minus 0.5x plus 1.5. Alright, let's go over to the graphing software and see what that looks like. So here is the original graph. We needed our perpendicular line to go through the point negative 3, 3, which is over here. And then the equation that we got was minus a half x plus 1.5. So y equals minus a half x plus 1.5. Okay, so does this meet the criteria? Well, it certainly looks like it's a right angle and it passes through that point, so I think we've got it. Now I want to talk a little bit more about how we know for certain that using this minus 1 over m trick actually works. Why does that give us a perpendicular line? So we're going to zoom in on part of this graph and we're going to explore it using angles. So here are the two lines. Here's the original one and here is the perpendicular one. So let's think about how we could prove that this minus 1 over m rule actually works. So remember that the gradient of 2 in this graph, what we mean by that is that for every 1 unit along you go up 2. Now what would it mean to say that we want a gradient of minus 1 over m, which is minus 1 over 2 in this case? It means for every unit along we go half a unit down. And maybe an easier way of thinking that is that for every 2 units along we go 1 unit down. So we're actually going to think about some triangles here. For my original line, I go along 1 unit and up 2 units. And in this one, in my perpendicular line, I go along 2 units and down 1 unit. So that length there is 2 and that length down here is 1. So notice that these two triangles are exactly the same. They are similar, in fact they are congruent triangles. So how can we prove that that makes this a right angle here, which was the whole point of this exercise? Well, let's say that we knew this angle, and let's call it x. What else do we know? Well, clearly this is a right angle here. And then what can we say about this angle up here? Well, let's just call it y for now. What facts do we know about x and y? Well, since x and y and this right angle are all in a triangle, we know that x plus y plus 90 must be 180. Well, subtracting 90 from both sides, I get x plus y equals 90, and this is a fact I'm going to use later. Now, since this triangle here is congruent to this one, it has exactly the same angles. So here's the right angle, this one's y, and this one's x. But now look at the angle we've got here. The angle we've got here is x plus y. What facts do we know about x plus y? We know that they add to 90. So that means that the angle between this line and this line is 90 degrees, and that proves that our -1 over m rule guarantees us a line which is perpendicular, which lies at 90 degrees. So I hope you enjoyed that lesson, and I hope you enjoyed looking in a little bit more detail than you might have done in GCSE. I'll see you in the next lesson.